Hello. Yeah. Hey guys, my name is Ram. I'm from Great Learning, and today we're going to be learning about Git. Now, before we begin this session, what we normally do is we do a mic check and a screen check. Just so you guys need to tell me if you guys can hear me properly and if you can see me properly or not. All right. So once I get that confirmation, I can begin this session. So go ahead and give me that yes or no, whatever feedback it is, in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat while I'm talking right now. There's a little bit of a lag, but go ahead and tell me. All right. Before we begin, so as a standard thing I want to do in my sessions is introduce you guys to the concept of academy, Great Learning Academy. So here at Great Learning, we've come with something really awesome called Great Learning Academy. Now you guys can go ahead and type in Great Learning and Academy in Google, and the first link you see, right, just click on that, and we'll take you to our website. So here, basically, you get free courses. That's right, free courses, no catches, nothing. You don't have to pay for anything. You can just go ahead and watch any course that you want that is available over here for completely free. So once you enroll for these courses, right, you just scroll down and you'll see that the courses are over here, or you can just Google, search those courses, and you'll find a lot of different courses over here. Whichever domain you're interested in, you can go ahead and enroll in them. And once you enroll in them, and once you complete those, courses, you will get a quiz. Finish that quiz, and you shall get a certificate. Now, guys, don't confuse this with the live session. You're not gonna get a certificate from this live session on YouTube, because generally we don't hand that out. But I would like to give a shout out to our Python live session course that we're doing. So we're doing a course live. You can go ahead and watch it tomorrow. One of the sessions is scheduled tomorrow. So stay tuned for that also. And again, Great Learning Academy is something really cool, especially if you've lost your job because of the COVID situation, or you're finding it really tough to come out of college and find a job from scratch. There's definitely a place where you can start building a fundamental core part of your career, where you choose a direction and you take that direction for the kind of job you want to do. All right. So coming back, let me see what kind of response you guys have. I like a good response. So guys, let's see what kind of response today's audience has. All right. So I see that everyone's, yeah, everyone's here. They're saying hi. And they're saying that I am audible. All right. So that's awesome. So I can see that there are a lot of people over here. Hi, Anurag. Yeah, good to see you. We have the Doruk. Welcome to the session. Again, Kashyap is there. Hi, Kashyap. We have Naresh. Welcome, Naresh. We have Sheshidar. We have telenovelas. Someone is a fan of Mexican, Latino, soap operas. We have Anshul. Okay. And we have Parth. So you have a lot of people in this session, and I really hope you guys will enjoy it. So this is what we're gonna do. So basically, I'm gonna go take you guys through the basics of the Git. Git is an amazing tool, especially if you're into coding or any kind of coding. Doesn't matter if you're into development, if you're into automation, if you're into if you're into specific things like data science, wherever you're coding, or sometimes even without coding, you can use Git. So today we'll be going through the basic theory of it, and then I'll take you guys through some concepts, like main beginner concepts. Now I want to know from you guys whether you guys know Git or not. So let me know in the comments, in the chat, whether you guys are familiar with the concept of Git or not. So accordingly, I will teach you guys. Like if a lot of people don't know about it, then I'll take you through the extreme basics. Or if some of you do know about it, some of you don't, then I'll go through a little bit medium, like a little beginner concepts, and and some of the little bit more advanced concepts. So let's hear that in the chat. All right, so we have someone who's asking for Hindi sessions. Okay, guys, this one is a English session. We will have a Hindi session later for this, so stay tuned. Definitely will be having a Hindi session. So out of the 33 people there are right now, I see that most of you are saying no. So that is going to be my assumption. We have The Doruk saying he knows. So there, that's good. It's going to be a revision for you. Since most of the people are saying no, I'm going to go through the basics of this. Now, guys, remember, Git is something very essential for anyone, right? Even if you're a beginner, even if you're new, I think it's a skill that everyone should learn, especially if you are going to be working with computers. All right, so let's start off let me just show you guys what we can cover today. So if time permits, you can cover all of these topics. So first we have version control. What is it? Why do we need a version control system? What are the different version control systems available? What is Git? The whole Git overview, getting started with GitHub, and installing and configuring it. Then we'll go through the basic commands. Now, generally in some sessions I end with basic commands, but if we have enough time, we can go to branches, merging concepts, Git workflow, and etc. All right. And again, guys, if you want a self-paced course where you don't want to watch me keep on talking, maybe you're not able to keep up, then we have videos. We have a video in Hindi, like a lot of you I saw requested for Hindi. So we have a specific video for Git in Hindi. It's called Getting Started with Git in Hindi. So go ahead and type that with Jenkins with Great Learning tag in YouTube, or the moderator will go ahead and give you guys the link, so you can watch it in Hindi if you want. And it's like I explain everything properly over there. All right, it's a self-paced course. Tutorial, whatever you like to call it. All right, let's start off with talking about what is version control. Now, I still see that people are replying by saying that they don't know, or it is new for them, and they don't have an amazing idea about what it is. So let me make it clear. So Git is a version control system, right? So what is version control over here? Now, you guys might be thinking version control is basically having multiple versions or something. What is version? Let's break it down. Let's go to the first thing, first building block of this whole thing. That is version. So what is version? Version is something that you designate to remind yourself how many different copies, or not copies exactly, how many different the word is version itself. Like it would be better to give you guys an example. Now, let's say you've made an app on Play Store, on Google Play Store. It's a gaming app. Like you want to make a game for your friends and you make a gaming app. So the first release that you ever do, the first time you release it, you release the app 1.0. Then you go to the next version, as in you think of adding new features. You think that adding a new small mini game would be awesome, or asking people for details. So you release a version 2 of that. So you see what's happening? You are adding more stuff, and you are incrementing the version number. So this way you keep a track of how many applications you've released so far. If you guys know about Android, it would be very helpful for you to understand. Android has had many different iterations, right? Many different versions. Android 2, 3, 4, 5, and 4.1, and all those different various versions it has had. Or just look at iOS. If you guys know about Apple, Apple likes to change, they have a certain nomenclature they follow when they're releasing their new iPhones. They had iPhone, 2, iPhone 3G, iPhone 4, iPhone 4S, iPhone 5 and iPhone 5S and C, all those kind of different versions they had, right? So version control is basically controlling how you version things. That is what version control is. Now, what is version control in context to software development? Like we have Dharmendra Yadav saying development. So I'm assuming he's saying software development. So what is version control in context with development? So in software development, what do? You write code, right? You bring up an editor and you start writing any code. So let's say, let me just come over here. You guys can see my awesome background wallpaper. All right, now let me open up my text editor. Let's say, okay, not this. Let me open Sublime. All right. So here we have a new text. Over here, I'm going to start writing some HTML code. So this is me writing the code for a website that I want to have, right? HTML. And over here, I mention, let's say, p tag, and let's say, hi, hey, how are you guys? Huh? So this is my piece of code, right? So this is what I write to create something online. So that is kind of like how software development is. Now, what happens when I want to create multiple, what happens when I want to create multiple versions of this? Let's say this is my simple website, right? And let's save this in one place. So let me go ahead and save this file, save as. Let me save this on desktop. Simple app for my YouTube audience. Yeah. So this is a very simple HTML file. Now I saved it as a .txt file. That's all, right? If you saved a .html file, it would have, been an HTML document. Actually, let's do that. Yeah, so you guys can see now it's an HTML document. Now here, basically this is our code. This is our first iteration of our code. So if you come out and I click on over here, simple app, and open it, you guys can see this particular text, right? So this is my version 1 of the app. So I will call this simple website 1.0, right? Now, what if I want to create another version of it and I want to basically add new stuff? So let's say I add a new p tag and I start adding more stuff. Or let's say I wanted to add a header. So I will say h1 and I will say I am awesome. Yeah. So this is my code. Now this code is going to be different. Why? Because this is not the same 1.0 code. This is a new version of my code. So over here, I will make the change and I'll make it 2.0. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this, Control S, and we can come back and we'll refresh and it says I am awesome, right? And what if I write a, what if I introduce myself? I am Ram. I love ice cream. Yeah. So let me just remove this and I'll save it and we'll mention that this is the third version. Save it and I refresh it. So you can see that I've written a new sentence over here and this is a completely new version. But there's something lost over here. Now, what is lost over here? Can somebody tell me what happened? Or actually, it's quite obvious. We removed a sentence over here and that sentence is completely gone. Can anybody tell me what that sentence was? Go ahead and type that in the chat. I want to see how many of you remember what I typed over there. Right now I've written over here, I am Ram and I love ice cream. But I wrote something else over there. So what did I write over there? Can somebody tell me? Do you guys remember what I wrote over there? I want to see you guys type it in the chat. I want to see if you guys remember it or not. This is going to be a bit of a lag since my voice takes time to reach you guys. So we have Naresh saying awesome, but see, awesome is written over here. I did not write awesome over here. I wrote some other statement, right? What did I write over here? Now, I don't think anyone knows. All right, so we have Takshita saying, hey, how are you? Yeah, so that is what I wrote, but not exactly the same thing, right? Yeah, so I wrote, hey, how are you? So see, some of you remember, but some of you do not remember. And now, would you keep on doing this every time you want to write something new? Yeah, would you like to do that? What if I wrote like a long sentence like, if I just gave my life story, this is my life story, and then I remembered that no, this is not my life story. I wrote my friend's life story, so I'll change it to my life story. So I lose my friend's life story because I overwrote it. So that is again not good controlling of our versions over here. So that is what version control is. You basically keep multiple versions of this instead of having it in one place, right? So that's what a version control tool is. It basically allows us to have multiple versions of a certain thing. And in context of software development, it is code, right? So that is what our version control is. So generally, version control can be with a lot of different things. You don't really need to have it, for singularly for software development, but we use it a lot with software development. Another example would be like, let's say that you're a school student or you're a college student, right? And you made a really awesome program for your final year project. where you have this program that basically analyzes a lot of websites and finds some certain insights from those websites. But you think that you could be done better. You remember that your professor told you that you can introduce some parallel concepts and make it more optimize the code. So you go ahead and optimize your code, but then you remember you're not that great at parallel computing, but you still go ahead and try. But the thing is, you try this at the end of your deadline, as in you have to submit on November 22nd, but you did it on November 21st. Now, this isn't really great, but you have a backup. You already have something working. You just haven't optimized it. So you think that, yeah, it's fine. I'll just show the original thing if the new thing doesn't work. So you spend like 4 hours, 5 hours, and you correct that code. But then after you correct that code, you add your parallel computing, code over there. You make it more optimized. You try to run it. Now you see that you're getting new errors that you can't resolve. You don't understand why, because you're not that great at parallel computing. So over here, you have your deadline tomorrow, and you don't have a working code. Why? Because you overwrote your previous code. You didn't even think of having a backup for it. So now over there, that's a big oversight where you don't have a backup. Now that's definitely something else to talk about. But in this case, if you used a version control tool like Git, or if you just made a simple version control hierarchy in your own computer where you had different folders having different kind of things, right? So there itself, you could have, had not have had this issue. You could have still had something to show the professor instead of not having some code that's not working at all, right? So that's why version control is very important. These days when software is developed, right, it's not developed with the mindset that there will be only one piece of code that will be deployed and that's it. These days, smaller snippets of codes are deployed in regular successions with regular feedbacks. So let's say you want to develop an app. You will have like two teams working on this app, and one team is working on one part, the other team is working on the other part. Now you'll work in smaller sprints, like smaller time intervals. Like you might work in 1 month intervals on certain projects. So you work on one project month 1 and one project on month 2, or different versions of the code. So you have to quickly put out code, right? When you have to quickly put out code and you have so many teams putting out so many different versions of the code, how do you handle all of it? That's where you have a need of having version control system to manage all the different versions of the code, right? So version control is basically a practice of managing and storing different versions of a source code. Now, this is especially true. This is especially the case with larger companies that have multiple projects and multiple teams working on it. Imagine Amazon. Amazon is a very big company. They have a lot of different things. They have grocery sale. They have the general shopping. They have Audible. They have AWS, that is Amazon Web Services, and they have like hundreds of developers or even thousands of developers working in their company, providing them with software, right? So how do they manage all of it? So they have their own internal thing, but there's something called Git also. It's a version control tool that basically helps us to manage them, helps them to manage all of their code. So let's say there's a XYZ company and they have project A, they have project B and project C. So as you guys can see, there's A1, A2, A3 in project A, and similarly with B and C. So these are basically versions. So A1, A2, and A3 are versions of project A. So when you have different versions of project A, right, you want to be able to manage this properly. So even and in a big company where you have 3 big projects and multiple teams working on this, to organize all of it, to manage all of it, you can't do it manually. It's very difficult. That's just too hard to do. So you use a tool that helps you version control, right? So that's what version control tool is. All right, so I hope that you guys understood what it is. Now let's see, why do we need a version control system? So Akshay is asking, start with extreme basics. Akshay, I am starting with extreme basics. I spent around 15 to 10 minutes explaining what version control is, right? We even haven't started with Git. So I hope you're able to understand right now what I'm teaching. If you guys can't understand it, that's totally fine. Everyone studies on their own pace. You can always watch this video when it's uploaded later. Okay. So now let's go to, why do we need a version control system? So that is something we already know. We needed to help us organized. So just as we discussed, the purpose of version control system is, as the name suggests, it controls the different versions of a code. Now, the idea of a version control system meshes very well with DevOps ideology. And if you're a person who's very inclined towards learning about DevOps, Git is a definitely must tool, because when you'll be creating Git workflows and all, you need to understand how Git works, right? It allows quick delivery of code and automatic job triggering. So when you want to automate a lot of different processes in your software development, right? When you want to automate things, even in that scenario, version control systems come in very handy, because they are on a distributed repository. That means, they are on a cloud, and you can pull them easily. You can pull the code, download the code, and use it for your purpose. You deploy the code as a software, whatever you want to do. So automation becomes a lot more easier when you have a version control system. All right, so they mesh very well together. So now let's look at the benefits of a version control system. We have control. So this basically is an important aspect where you control what is happening to your code. You have absolute control. You are able to control even the minutia of what is happening with your code, and who is handling and how is it being handled, all of those kind of things. And security is definitely a thing, because you need authorized access to pull like major code from version control systems. You can't just not any Tom, Dick, Harry can come and pull code from a company's repository and use it and then push it back, unless they set the settings in such a way that people can do it, right? Even then, even if it's an open source software, you can pull the code, but when you want to push it back, you can't do that, because you need to do a pull request, and you need to ask the author of that open source code that, this is a suggestion I have for your code, can you please upload it? And he'll be like, yeah, okay, fine. So in that kind of scenario, so you see that there's a lot of security on different levels, where you need to be authorized to touch certain codes, and you need to be authenticated, right? And fast delivery, again, this comes back to how you can automate the whole software development process. Faster delivery also can happen because of your productivity increase. If you're able to handle your code properly, then you can increase your productivity. And availability. So availability is also something that matters, because when you're working with your code, let's say that you have remote coders. So your company is in America and you're working in India, and you only talk to your boss through Skype or Zoom or Google Meet, whatever you use, right? In that scenario, you are given some task to do, you create the code for it, but then you forget to push it to your version control system. You're not able to maintain it on the cloud, the code. You're not able to push it to the cloud. So how do the people or the company in America get access to it? Because you log off for the day and you're like, "Ha, mera kaam to ho gaya. I am done with my work, so I don't really need to think about this." But you forgot to upload your code, so no one can access it. So that means that your code does not have any availability. It's not available to the people who need it. So let's say that there's an urgent need for that code in America, the people who are working in America, and they cannot access it because you did not upload it, or then it's in your hard drive. So in that scenario, availability is very important, where version control systems provide a lot of availability, because version control systems are generally these days online. So a big prime example is again Git, and that's what we're going to be learning about. So you can see Git over here, right? So one of the most simple web app that I've created over here, my code is already uploaded. So any one of you, all of you guys over here, Web Solution, Akshay, Jamil, Mejar, Takshita, Suyash, all of you guys can basically go to my this link. If you just go ahead and copy this link and paste it in your browser, you can come over here. You can basically copy whatever code I have. Like if I go back over here, see, if you click on code over here, you can copy my repository, you can paste it in your system and download whatever you want, or you can download as a zip file also. So it's very easy and it's available online. So that's what availability matters. And sometimes availability is guaranteed even through natural disasters, especially in a situation where we're in a pandemic, right? Where everyone's working remotely. So everyone's working remotely, that means that it's going to be difficult to give code in hard drives or in pen drives. So they have to do it over internet. So availability matters. If Git was not available, a lot of companies will not be working or functioning fine. I guarantee this to you guys. All right. So let's move on. Let's talk about what are the different version control systems available. We have AWS Code Commit, we have Git, and we have Mercurial. Now, you have a lot of options. Generally, I've mentioned these three because I've had some experience with these three. And Git is the most standardized version control system you'll hear about. Git is the one that is used the most a lot of places. All right, so this is the one that people generally prefer. Like it's free, you don't have to pay anything for this. So a lot of people prefer this also because no licensing fee, it's easy to use, and it is an amazing tool overall. We will talk about this, all right? So now let's start talking about Git. But before we do begin with Git, I want to know, I want to get a feedback from you guys that you have a clear idea on what a version control system is and you already basically know what Git does. So if you do, please go ahead and tell me. I want to know, right? I want to know if you guys understood or not. Otherwise, there's no point for me to continue. If you guys didn't understand, I will give you a brief again and then I will start Git. Go ahead and tell me in the chat. I'm watching the chat. So we have Anshul saying that yes, they understand. So I see Anshul understands. So we have Shashidhar also saying yes. So I see some of you understood what I was talking about. All right. So okay, that satisfies me because I hope that uh, the whole job is to make sure that you guys understand. This is for you guys. All right. So I see Anshul also saying yes. Praetors is also saying, yep, understood. All right, so we have a lot of people who have understood all of these. Oh, yeah, Kashyap is also here. All right, yeah, Kashyap is saying it's clear too. All right, so let us begin now. So let us continue with Git. So Git is basically an open source version control system that allows user to keep track of all the changes that have been made to the source code software. So basically, whenever you make any changes, Git knows that you made those changes. If I say that I add a new tag over here, let's say it's an h2 tag, and I will call this they people watching my live session are awesome. All right, so let me save this. Let me come back. Yeah, so this is the change I've made. So Git is a tool that will remember that I've made this change, right? So it tracks all of these changes. It makes sure that it understands that there are different versions of a code, right? So that's what Git does. Git is a tool that helps us to basically track our code and store our code and version that code. All right. So Git was, Git, let me give you some background for Git. So Git stands for, once again, I keep on forgetting this. I shouldn't be Googling it, but I keep on forgetting Git full form. Global Information Tracker. Yes, Global Information Tracker. That's the full form of Git. So Git is basically a tool that was developed by Linus Torvalds. If you guys know about Linus, he made a Linux kernel also back in the 90s. And in 2005, around that time, he made Git. Now, he made Git because, I mean, he solely didn't make Git. There were other people also contributed. So basically, these group of people, they wanted to make Git because, again, the reason was that they did not have a good alternative back then. They did not have a good open source software, which means it's a free software that performed all the amazing things that they wanted a version control system to do. Obviously, they had version control systems going back even 2000s, but it wasn't as good, So they wanted to make a new one and they wanted it to be open source. So they came up with Git. That is your global information tracker. So Git is really awesome. So this is how it basically works. You have like a lot of developers working in one team. So let's say developer one is responsible for writing code, code piece of code one, and developer two is responsible for writing piece of code two. Right? So you have two developers, and these two developers go ahead and write these different functions or these pieces of code they're responsible for. Now, once they finish writing it, what they do is they basically use Git to upload it to GitHub. So there is a clear distinction for you here between the difference between Git and GitHub. They're basically like a two-man. This is basically a two-man job, version control over here. GitHub is basically your cloud. I mean, it's not exactly cloud, but it is basically a distributed repository. Distributed repository means that it is all over the world and it is a repository. Repositories basically mean locations where you store certain things. You have code repositories where you store different codes. You have package repositories where you store different versions of packages, right? So Git is a tool that basically helps them to make all the changes, track all the changes, and push the code. If both for developer 1, developer 2, this is basically will be on their own systems. Like Git will be on developer 1's laptop, Git will be on developer 2's laptop, right? And GitHub is something that is there online. It's a distributed cloud or distributed repository where you store all of your stuff, right? Again, this is the place where I would go. Even you guys can go and check it out. It's not on my PC. It's somewhere in servers in America or wherever Git servers are located. It's a distributed repository. So this is GitHub, and we use Git to push and track and version our code. All right. All right, so I hope that's clear. So again, Git and GitHub are distinct. They work together though. Yes, it's an open repository. Yeah. So once both of them upload their code to GitHub, they can pull each other's codes. So let's say that developer 2 now wants to work on function 1 and developer 1 wants to work on function 2. They can basically reference the repository on GitHub and pull each other's codes, and they can start working on those codes, right? So Git is very flexible in that matter. And we will see how we can utilize or think about these kind of scenarios where you have different people looking at GitHub, pulling their code and everything, right? And once you upload it to GitHub, you can do a lot of different things. So if you guys are following my DevOps series, if you watch any of the Jenkins videos that I've released out, then you guys will notice that GitHub is used with Jenkins, where GitHub, the code that is on GitHub will be pulled onto Jenkins, which is another automation tool, and will basically deploy it. Deploying means putting the software in a production environment or a server and giving it to the end users. Yeah. So that's an amazing thing about GitHub too. All right, so now let's talk about what actually happens within Git. So we know that Git is a version control system, but how does it do what it does? So the first step in this whole thing is the working directory. So when you are going to version your code, you need a place where to write this code, right? So I wrote my code over here. So where is this code stored? So if I close this, if I come back, and I think this is full screened. One second. Yeah. So this is my code, right? One second. Yeah. So this is my code. Where is this stored? If I go to the main screen, you guys can see that this is where my code is stored. That means it's stored in the desktop, right? So this is my working directory. Directories are basically your folders. Desktop is a folder. You can even call it a directory. And my code is stored over there. So this is my working space. Working space is basically where I write my code. The location, जगह जहाँ पे मैं अपना code लिखता हूँ. The place where I write my code. So that's the first step. The first step is to assign a working directory in your mind. So you think about the place where you want to assign a working directory, and you go to that place, and you assign it in your mind. You think, okay, I'm going to create a folder called project. I will go inside it, and that's where I will write all my code. So project is your working directory that you have assigned by yourself. Then comes the step of initializing. So the initializing step is where you tell Git, hey Git, listen, so project is a folder where I'm going to start writing all my code. So please keep an eye on this folder, and please recognize this folder as a local repository. So we talked about cloud repository, right? So Git is a cloud repository, whereas our local folder, the project, is a local repository. It's on our system. So initializing is a step where we tell Git that we are going to start working, and please think of this as a local repository, right? And then we go to the staging phase. Now, the thing that you do to staging phase, actually, before you go to the staging phase, after you're done initializing that local repository, you start working. मतलब आप सारा काम करने लग जाते हो. You start doing all the things you want to do. You write the code. You make all the changes you want to do on the code. So when I was writing my code, that was my process of creating the code. So once I've created the code, I can go ahead and stage this code. That is the process of staging. So in the staging part over here of the life cycle, you're basically telling Git that these are the changes that I've made, right? So you tell Git to start tracking certain files. Your project can be a big project folder, right, where you have multiple files. One of the files is your simple app for my YouTube audience.html file. So over here, when I come over here, you guys can see that there's a Docker folder. There is a Adobe XD folder. There is a recycle bin. There is a Bitly folder. Now there are a lot of folders over here, but the only thing I'm concerned about is my simple web app. So I tell Git that this simple web app is the only thing you need to track. So once I tell it that please initialize, I will tell it that this is the folder that I want you to start tracking. This app, this file. So Git will read through the file. It will understand what are the changes I've made, what I've added, and all of those things. So that is your staging process in Git. Once Git has understood all the changes that you've made, all the working things that you've done, it will go to the next stage, that is the local storage or the committing phase or the committing stage. So once Git has understood everything about the code, it will ask you to commit these code. So what committing basically means is saving all the changes. So let's say that I've written I am awesome and this is my code. Now I go ahead and make a change and I write over here. But my mom thinks otherwise, right? So this is a change that I've made. Now when I press Control S, I'm saving it, right? So committing is basically saving your changes to the local repository. So it's commits are basically histories of all the changes you made. Now, once you made all the changes and Git has understood that you made all of these changes, it will ask you, क्या आप इन सारे changes को save करना चाहते हैं? Do you want to save all of these changes? Right? So that's the committing step. And once you commit it, you can go ahead and push it to GitHub. So commit it, push it to GitHub, and done. Yeah. So this is basically the life cycle of code within Git. All right. So now let's quickly get started with GitHub. Now making an account on GitHub is very easy. And I hope you guys understood what Git does. Huh? All right. So making an account in GitHub is very easy. I don't want to go through that process. Just go to GitHub. It will ask you for logging. You can log in through your Gmail account. That's the best choice I would recommend. And once you are in GitHub, the first thing that you need to check out is your left-hand side repositories. Now, I have a lot of repositories. You guys feel free to check out my repositories. I have a lot of them. And some of them are forked. And in these repositories, you need to click on New because that's where you create your new repository from your main page. Repository is basically a place that contains all project files, including revision history. Already have, okay, that's not necessary, but it contains all the project files. So basically it's the location within GitHub where you store your code. So this is a simple web app for my YouTube audience. So I'm going to say here, my capital keys on, simple web app for my YouTube audience. Yeah, that's a big name, but this is a relevant name. A description generally is, something that you should put in, but I'm not going to. Or should I put one? Let's put one. All right, so you put in a description about your repository, you make it public or private. Public basically means you allow everyone on the internet to see it. You can choose who can commit, so that is different. But you can see the repository. That if someone's repository, if you can see someone's repository, that means that either they've given you the link or they made it public. If you make it private, only those people with the link can check it out. It's like YouTube videos. If you have YouTube videos on private, nobody can see them. But if you have them on public, everyone can see them. All right. You can add a README file or a .git ignore. I'm going to explain these things later. There's no need. You can just go ahead and click on create repository. So these are the simple things that you need. You just need the name and you need to make it public or private. All right. You can add a description and you can select these settings. Now you're going to click on create repository and it will create a repository for us. Oh, Vansh is, telling us happy Bhai Dooj. Happy Bhai Dooj to you too. Happy Bhai Dooj to everyone. And happy belated Diwali, guys. I hope you really enjoyed. And I hope you guys didn't burst any crackers. There's already a lot of pollution over here, but it's all right. Anyways, let's come back to this. Here, so you guys can see that I have created my repository. So if I go to my Remicode main, page again, you guys can see, if I'm not here, I'll have to check it over here. Over here, you guys can see that this is my repository that has been created. Simple web app for my YouTube audience. Right? So right now there's nothing inside of this repository because we haven't put anything, but you guys can see that there are options to do so. create a new repository on command line. That's basically telling you how to make your local repository or push from an existing command line. So basically it's telling you how to push from your local system onto repository. Right now, just keep this tab open, right? I will tell you guys how you can push the file over here, right? So I want to know from you guys whether you use Windows or Linux, right? Because a lot of people use Linux also, so I don't want to discriminate against them, but I know a lot of you prefer to use Windows. But since you guys are beginners, I'm going to assume you use Windows, so I'll be working mostly with Windows over here, right? So, but do let me know in the chat if you guys use Linux or Windows, right? I want to have a clear idea also, right? So let me go ahead and type in Git for Windows, right? Just type in Git for Windows on Google. The first link that you get, you can go ahead and click on that. Downloading package, right? So it will automatically start the download for you. If it doesn't, you can go ahead and click over here, or you can get a specific version if you want a 32-bit or if you want a 64-bit, right? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and click here to download manually. So it's like 46 MB. All right, so while this downloads, I'm gonna go ahead and check what you guys said. We have Anshul saying Happy Diwali. Thank you so much. Same to you. And we have Rohan saying yes. So I assume you use Windows. Anshul is saying I use Windows. Parth is saying Windows. Ajay Windows. Oh, we have Shashidhar using Linux. Oh, nice. Which Linux distro do you use? Yeah, do you use Ubuntu or do you use something else like Arch? One of my friends uses Arch. He has a very slick setup. And we have Kashyap saying he uses Windows too. All right, so Windows is the thing that everyone uses. Statistically, also everyone uses Windows. All right, so we have Git installed, and we can go ahead and click on it. So this is the latest version. I'm not sure if this is the latest stable version, the LTS version, but this is the latest version. And it will ask you, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? You will say yes, and we'll start downloading Git, and let's go through the process. Siddharth Chandel is saying, is this course is just started? Well, this is a live session to help you guys out in understanding about Git, right? This is not specifically a course. But if you want a live course itself, then we have an excellent trainer that is doing an amazing course on Python tomorrow. You guys, come for that, okay? That is an amazing course. All right, so coming back to Git, we'll just click on next over here. You don't need to change any of these settings, especially since you're a beginner. If you guys have some experience, you can go ahead and change it. No one's stopping you. Just click on next, and it will start installing on your computer. Now, I already have it installed on my system. I'm just showing this for your benefit. I hope it doesn't take too long. It generally does not. If it takes too long, then we have a secondary backup. So don't worry. Hi, Rohan. Welcome to the session. If you guys have any questions related to this, go ahead and ask me in the chat while this is downloading. I would be glad to answer them. All right. We have Gaurav saying Windows 2. All right, guys, while this is happening, why don't you go ahead and, show me some love by clicking like or, subscribe to watch any of my future live sessions. It really helps, it helps increase the awareness also of our videos. We know that a lot of people are not able to watch our videos because of the YouTube algorithm. So, go ahead and give us a little boost, like, and, subscribe. And if you want to share this to someone, you can always share it to someone. Yeah. Okay, Siddharth Chandel is asking, is Bitbucket better or GitHub? Well, it really depends. Now, I haven't used Bitbucket that much, so I use GitHub mostly. So I don't have a great idea about how big Bucket is. So, I can't tell exactly. But GitHub is the industry standard, man. People generally use GitHub, most cases. Only in some companies you'll see that people use Bitbucket, and it's a paid software, which is better, paid or free. Generally, paid software, but in this case, I am more inclined to say it is Git. the open free software. All right, so our Git has been installed. Let me click on finish, and it will show me the release notes. I don't need to go through them. I don't really know what's going on. All right, so once you come to your desktop, right, there are actually two ways you can open up this Git on your Windows. You have Git GUI and Git Bash. So I'll explain both of these things, but you guys will be using Bash, trust me. So once you open Git GUI, it's basically your graphical user interface. So this is basically your, it's UI. It's UI based. If you want to create a new repository, you have an option to open and create a new repository. If you want to clone an existing one, then you can go ahead and clone it. I think they've changed the UI a little bit. It did not used to be like this. This is the latest one, maybe. All right. So this is your GUI. Now the GUI is really good and all. You guys can see that, I can clone an existing repository. That means I can go ahead and take my repository location. That is my repository code, and I can clone it. But we don't want to do that right now. So I'll tell you guys about cloning later. And this is fine and all, but come on, man. Bash terminal is much cooler. GUI everyone uses, but terminal who uses, right? I mean, in Git everyone uses the bash terminal, but if if you have a friend who doesn't know about coding and everything, you can show them, I'm a hacker. Let me open bash. So bash, right? So what's the difference between GUI and bash over here? So your bash terminal is basically a standard terminal that is used in a lot of different places. Now, one of the most recurring places that you guys will see this is in Ubuntu, right? Over here. So this bash terminal is used in a lot of places. So there are a lot of standard commands that are used everywhere, like the cd command and like the pwd command and a lot of different commands that you guys want to use. You can use the bash terminal, all right? So this is basically the one I would recommend you guys use too. You can use the GUI, but it's better to use the terminal. Now, a lot of times you guys will not be using the terminal, and instead you guys will be using the plugin that you have for whatever Visual Studio Code or whatever code editor you're using. Maybe there's a plugin for Sublime also if you guys want to check out, right? And for Visual Studio Code also. So, but I'm showing you from scratch for beginners. So this is the first thing. So over here, you guys are going to see the name of the user and the name of the desktop and the compiler that is being used and the name of the working directory right now. So right now, desktop is the directory, but we don't want desktop as our directory. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new directory using the mkdir command. I'm going to call this project. All right. And we will head to project. So you guys can see I've changed to project. All right. So that's great and all. Now we will start our proper process. Now, the first thing that we should be doing is setting this up, right? So let me go ahead and set this up. So git -config global, just one second. Okay, so we have someone saying that there is no PDF link available. And someone's saying, can you use the Visual Studio Code? I actually don't have it installed on my Visual Studio, so I don't know how long it will take to install it on my Visual Studio. So we'll go ahead with this only, and this is good for beginners. Now, someone's saying that there is no PDF link available for my this thing. Let me just check one second, guys. I'm pretty sure that it should be there. Okay, I can't find it. I mean, it's on my system, but it's not. Okay. Anyways, I won't spend a lot of time on that. I'll see this after the session. Maybe it's a glitch from our side. Don't worry, guys. Generally, it's available, and you can check it out next time also. And also, this video is available for after session, so you can, always watch this, pause it, and learn about it. Okay, so let me go ahead and configure my Git over here. So Git, not hyphen config, sorry. It is config hyphen global user dot name, and I'm gonna put my name over here. So my name is exactly Remy Code, right? All right, so this is my username I'm gonna put. So I've configured my username globally in the system. Now I'm going to go ahead and configure my email address. All right, so for this, we'll use johndoe456 at gmail.com. I misspelled config. The F should be here. All right. So now we have basically, made the configurations that we wanted. So we are basically done. So basically always given your username and email, that should be enough. Now we can start with the Git's proper process, right? So our process is this process. We first need to assign a working directory, then we need to go initialize. So our working directory has been initialized in our minds. You need to assign a working directory for yourself. That is project. Second step is to initialize. To initialize any repository, to tell Git that this is the local repository that you want to use, you type in git init. Yeah, so git init is the command that basically initializes the repository, local repository. So you guys can see that there is initialized our local repository over here. Okay, so that step is done. Now we can move on to the next step, that is to create the code. Okay, so I already had some code created, so let me go ahead and grab that code. If I do an ls over here, this is the code file, this is the .html file, right? So we want this. So let me go ahead and move this. All right, and I will move it to, okay, so let's head to project. All right, so we have a .html file over here. So generally you can create your HTML file. If you guys are following my steps, just go to create your folder and inside of it, you can go ahead and create your file. You just use nano and whatever name you want to give. So I've given this name, so I'll just keep on using this name. So nano is basically a editor that is available with your bash shell. Yeah, so you can directly use Sublime or whatever editor you want to use and then use Git, but you can directly do it too. So this is our code. So we have written the code. Let me go ahead and save this. Control O to enter the name. We enter the name and Control X to exit. All right. So now we will go to the next step. That is staging. Staging is basically us telling Git which part of this local repository to monitor and everything. So I'm going to type in git add. So this is the command. Now you can mention the name of the file, or what you can do is type in git add dot. So dot is basically telling Git to initial stage everything in the folder. Right now we have only that one file, so it doesn't matter if we specify that file or whatever file we want. So I'm going to press enter, and if I do a git status, it will tell me no commits yet, but changes to be committed, it will tell me a new file has been added. So it will ask me to commit this change. The change is that I've added a new file, right? So let me go ahead and make my working tree clean. So right now I need to make a commit. That is our next step, local storage saving. So I will do git commit -m and double quotes. Inside of this double quotes, I'm going to mention the name of my commit. So commit messages are basically relevant messages that tell you what you've done with the file. So I will say over here, added a new file. That is the relevant message because that's the change I've done. The change I've done is I've added a new file. Always make sure to add relevant commit messages. They're very important. So the syntax is git commit -m. Yeah. And the message. Let me go ahead and press enter. So you can see that the committing happened, one file changed, 6 insertions happened. Yeah, so now what we can do is, let me clear the screen and let me show you Git status again. So on the branch master, what is the branch master? I'll tell you guys, nothing to commit. We have a working tree clean. Working trees are, it's clean. All right, now I will do one more thing called git log. So git log basically gives you how many commits you've made, recent commits. So this is our latest commit. This is the name of our commit. This is the author. And this is basically the date of it. Okay. So now we've basically done all the things we want to do. Our next step is basically to push to GitHub. Now, how will we tell our local Git tool that I want to push it to this particular repository, right? So it doesn't know this by itself. We have to tell it. So I will copy it. So you can go ahead and copy it like this. Control C if you're using Mac, Command C, or you can just press over here. This will copy it into your clipboard. You can come back and you can do a git remote add origin and the name of the, or paste the URL. So what you're doing over here is you are adding a remote origin. Yeah. So a remote origin basically tells it what is its parent repository in GitHub. This is the parent repository that we created. Okay. So we are telling Git. So this is the command that allows us to tell Git. Now what we can do is we can push it over here, push whatever code we have. Right now we have this code, we will go ahead and push it. Whatever changes we have made, actually what we push is all the changes that we have made with whatever file we have staged. So let me do the command for that. So the command is git push origin master. So you guys understand this very well, right? It's basically pushing a code. Now origin and master. So I'm telling Git, please push my code to the origin. We just defined the origin. The origin is this. That was a previous command. And from where, what do I want to push? I want to push all the code from a master branch. So you have multiple branches on your local system. You can have, and you have to choose from which branch you want to push. Okay. So for now, understand we are going to be pushing master branch. So I'll press enter and you guys should see the pushing process happening. So right now you guys can see that it is pushing. It basically push to this repository. And if you refresh, we can see the app. Yeah. And you can go ahead and see the app, the code, and whatever there is, right? So that's how we do it. Now it's available to everyone. So if you guys have the patience to type github.com/remy code /simple web from my app, you will directly get this link. Or here's what, just go to github.com. Just go to github.com and do a /remy-code. Yeah. Okay, not this. And this will take you to my user page, right? And over here, you guys can go ahead and check out my repository. So if you go to repository over here, repositories over here, you can find the first app and you guys can access it. See, this is the app. You can access this. So this is an exercise for all of you. I want you guys to go ahead and do this. So once you've done that, right, you've basically done all the steps. You've pushed it to your GitHub. Using Git, you basically saved all the changes and you pushed it to GitHub. Yeah. So now let's learn how we can pull and all the other common commands, right? So what if I want to pull from this particular website? Or actually, let's do another exercise where I change this file again and we'll see the change. So let's make a drastic change over here. So let me add another p tag. I'll add a lot of hashtags. Let me go ahead and save this. Now, if I try to commit this, you will see that there is an issue. It said that changes not staged for commits. You have to always stage first. So what will I do? I will first stage my file. I will do a git add dot. You can always mention this file specifically. And I will do a git status. Now, this is not an important step, but this is for you to check. What is to be modified? Simple app for this thing has been modified. So you want to commit this. So I'm going to do a git commit now, -m. I'm going to put a relevant commit message. I will say I added, or let's say just added, no need to add I and all, if that's understood. Added a line of hashtags. Yeah, I'll press enter. And you can see that one file changed, one insertion happened. Okay, now we can go ahead and git push origin master. Now guys, over here, we can see that we don't have to mention the origin again because it already knows. We just had to tell it about the origin just once. Now if I press enter, you can see that it will start pushing again. And it's done pushing. All right, now let's come back over here. And let's do a refresh. We can see there is a second commit now. And you can see our message also. Added a line of this thing. Okay, too far. Zoom too in. If you look at the code, we can see the new line of code. Yeah, I hope you guys understood that. Now I want to do one more thing over here is I want to show you guys about cloning process. So over here you guys can see we are in the project domain. Oh yeah, again one more thing. If you do a git log, it will show you all the log commits you've made. You'll see that there's a new commit added. And I'll explain the head. Let's understand the master branch thing now. Okay, so why do you have branches? So the reason we have branches is because sometimes people might be working on the same code, have they want multiple people to work on the same code. So branches allow easy management of different parts of a software. Let's say your team is working on delivering a website. This website has different features, right? It can be a payment feature, it can be a tracking feature, whatever feature, right? So on each of these features, you have different people working on. You won't have one person working on everything. So these feature, when you are working in Git, right, you will consider them as branches. That means that if you have your main master branch where all of you have these commits and everything, you have multiple feature branches. Feature 1 branch is your payment branch, and feature 2 branch is your tracking branch. So the functions, the codes, right, that for those features will be written over here. Once they've written, they will be merged back to the master. You will put them back into the master. From feature 2, whatever code has been written, you put that back into the master. If you put it back into the master, the main code over in the end over here will have everything, whereas the starting code won't have anything. So over here, you are creating a duplicate of master. In feature 2, you're making the changes and you're putting it back. In feature 1 again, you're duplicating it in another place, you're making the changes and putting it back. This allows for a easy hierarchy and a lot of people to work together. So this really is awesome. So if you want to check out branches, just do a git branch. So it will show you that there is only one branch right now. This is the master branch. So the star and the highlighting basically tells you on which branch you are right now. So if I do git branch awesome. Sorry, let me add that T over here. So what I did is I basically created a new branch called awesome using the git branch command. So if I do a git branch again, I have 2 branches. So don't get confused. Git branch, if you just type in by itself, it shows you all the branches. If you type it with another name, it creates that branch. Okay, so we have another branch called awesome. So let's say that we are on master right now. If I do an ls, you can see that we have only one file, right? Let me go ahead and create a new file. It's an empty file. Yeah. So I create an empty file. If I do an ls, I can see that the hello.txt is over here. But we will see that the hello.txt is not on the awesome branch, right? Because we created it before we added the new .text file, right? We created this over here and we added the .text file over here in master branch. So that's why it won't be in awesome. But first, let's go ahead and stage this because we made a change and I will commit to it. Whenever you are working with multiple branches, right? Whatever change you're doing, always go ahead and commit it. The more frequently you commit, the better. So let's say added text file. So that's done. Now we can head to our other branch. Right now we are inside master, and if I ls over here, I can see hello.txt. But if I head to the other branch, to go to another branch, you use the git checkout command. If I press git checkout awesome, it will say switch to branch awesome, and you can change. You can see we changed from master to awesome over here. Yeah. If I do ls, you can see that there is no hello.txt file, right? So what is basically happening over here? If let me show you, is basically you have one master branch with the HTML file. Yeah. And then you create, this is the master branch. And then you create another awesome branch with the same code. So this also has HTML. And this branch, right, you add a new file called, let's say you add a new file called hello. Okay. All right, let me do this again. You add another branch called hello over here. See, so it won't share the two files. right? So that's your branching. Once you merge it back, all the changes that you've made, let's say you added HTML12, so this will have HTML12 as well as hello, the master branch. Yeah. So now merging is a concept I'll explain to you guys in another session. Today's session, I think this was enough. Now, I just want to tell you guys about one more thing which is not related to this. It's called cloning. Cloning is important. So let's come out of this directory. We are in project directory now. Let me go ahead and create a new directory. Call this temp. Let me head inside temp. And inside of temp, I'm going to go ahead and initialize it with, I'm going to git initialize it. You can see that there's no branches over here because I have not initialized it. Now, once I initialize it, I can see that this is master. Now I will go ahead and clone my repository. So right now, I have nothing in this directory, but I want to put something. So let me come back to my GitHub repository. We can take the same code, click on code over here in our repository, click on code and copy the command, copy the, basically the URL. If you copy it over here, you come back and you type in git clone and you paste. You are basically trying to download this file. Yeah, so this is the same as download zip. It will download your file, but it is much quicker. And if I just press enter, you can see it's cloning. I've cloned everything I want. If I do an ls, I can see my simple web app for YouTube audience. I'll head inside this, and if I do an ls, you can see the .html file. Now, whatever change we want to make in this, let's say, yeah, I come over here, I add dollar symbols, I save, I exit, I stage this, I commit this. Yeah, I go ahead and push this. Now you might be asking, for this, why don't we add a new origin? Because when you clone, right, it automatically understands that you have to send it back over here. When you clone something from a location, it automatically assumes that location as the origin. So we don't have to mention anything. If I just press enter, it will start pushing it. Yeah. So if we refresh, you guys will see 3 commits and we added the symbol. You can go ahead and explore the commits by clicking on the commits and see the commits that have happened. All right. Okay, guys. So that was it for this session. Now we have a lot more topics that we didn't cover, but maybe in next session I'll explain to you guys. Okay. All right. So we have 5 more minutes. Technically, we have lesser than that. But if you guys have any question, go ahead and ask me. I'll try to answer them in the chat. Okay, so we have a question. My magic trick is asking, what is a commit? Again, commit is basically like a history of all the changes that you've made. So if I do a git log over here, I can see I have 3 commits over here. So in this commit, I have a history. Who's the author? What is the date? What was the change that was made? And you guys can go ahead and, explore those changes. So if I come over here, once again, you can go ahead and check that code out, whatever code. Or if you want to revert a commit, you can go back also. All right, so we have someone asking, what is a fork? So fork over here, I think you mean this. So fork is basically when you want to copy someone's repository onto your own. So I have good examples of that. I have forked other people's repositories. So you can see this express card. Now this is a really awesome code. You guys should go ahead and check out this code. This guy's awesome. Mr. Votin, he made this code and I forked his repository. Now forking means basically that you copy exactly as the repository is onto your own repository. So it is copied onto my repository from his repository, right? And I can start making any changes I want. So you guys can go ahead and fork any of my repositories. So if you guys want, you just go to Jenkins sample or live session git and just fork those repositories onto your system on your repository, and you can see somebody fork my repository over here for simple web app, and they started working with it themselves. Yeah, so that's what a fork is. You mentioned nano keyword. What is nano? So nano is basically an editor. When I say nano over here, it's not exactly a command. It is, but nano is an editor, right? So if I have a simple .html file, if I want to edit it, then I use a nano editor. I can use other editors also, like I can use Vim editor. Now Vim editor is also another editor. It's a little bit awkward, especially for beginners. So that's why I didn't use it. Yeah, so that's it. All right, so we have one last question that I'll answer, then we'll end the session. Siddharth. So when we clone a repo, do we need to add owner or email? No, you do not need to add the owner or email when you clone someone else's repository. You just cloning it. That's the word, right? You are cloning it. But if you want to push it back, if it's a private repository, then there is a chance that you might not have access to that repository. You need to do something called a pull request. Yeah, you have to ask the permission from the owner. Only then can you go ahead and, push that code back. You want to clone a certain version. Well, you go ahead and check that version out and you copy the URL of that certain version. Now, I've never done that actually. That's a very good question. So let's say, go to simple web app. We have a lot of commits. Let's go to this commit. Yeah, so there you go. That's how you would do it. Okay, my magic trick is asking how to use Vim. Okay, to use Vim, just type V and whatever file name you want to put. Okay, and you can enter. And if you want to make any changes, you need to first press insert. There's an insert button on your system. Press insert, and then you can go ahead and add anything you want. Once you're done, press Control C to exit out of insert. And once you the changes you've made, you're sure about them, press Shift colon. So you're using Shift colon over here and type in WQ. WQ is basically write and exit. Write, quit. Okay, if you just want to quit, just quit. If you want to save what you've made, just put in WQ. Okay, and if I do a cat, we should see that change. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed teaching you. If you guys enjoyed the session, go ahead and show me some love. Like the live session. It really helps, help it reach other people also. And it helps me also. And, it makes me feel happy. And also, if you want or have any suggestions, leave them in the comments after this live session has been uploaded, and share with your friends also. And there are awesome sessions coming in future, so go ahead and check them out on greatlearning.com .in/academy. Over here, if you scroll down, these are the sessions we have. You guys can see this is the getting started one. Tomorrow we have Python for data science and Python beginners for Hindi. So you guys can see we have a lot of sessions. You guys can go ahead and register for them and you'll get an email reminding you, right? So we always have this feature. And if you want to explore any courses, that's also there. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really enjoyed teaching you, and my name is Ram, and I'll see you guys in my next session.